Well, it's good to see everybody. Our team got back to work last night. We took Saturday off after the big win Friday night. Everybody obviously feels good about the result Friday and the way that we played and the way that we persevered. Found a way to win a game in the fourth quarter, which we had not done up to this point. But that being said, when we came back yesterday, we put that game behind us, and it's time to get to work on Georgia Tech. And we have been through the first half of the season. We have faced plenty of adversity, throughout the games or even during the week in between games. And now this is a week where when you get an attaboy, you got to understand that it's still time to get back to work, and you can't sit there because last week does not count for this week. We know that if you watch any weekend of college football. So we got a challenge with Georgia Tech. We'll be back in our stadium. We're looking forward to an enthusiastic crowd. As crazy as it sounds, we only have 2 more home games left this year, which is crazy for a guy like Quarterman and Pickney, and which is just, it boggles the mind that we're already there. I thought our crowd was outstanding and made a big difference for us in the fourth quarter Friday night, and we'll look forward to getting in front of our people and having another great day on this Saturday at noon. And before I open for questions, also pretty cool that just found out that Trajan Bandy was named ACC Defensive Back of the Week. So congratulations to Trajan, who has really been working hard and I thought played his best game Friday night. So with that, let's open up for questions.
Trajan, talk about him a little bit more and what he did well and how he's improved.
Well, the number one thing that Trajan did a great job was just, his urgency. He played extraordinarily hard. When he was tested in coverage, did a good job in coverage, and then obviously made, for a team that's got to find a way to win the game in the fourth quarter, you're looking for the guys that can make the play, and you don't always know who that's going to be and what role it's going to be. So, how huge when Trajan comes free on the blitz, and gets a sack on Perkins, a guy that's so difficult to get on the ground. Obviously everyone knows sacks in a 1-minute drill are drive killers, and they were out of timeout. So for him to be able to make that play in that moment, we were looking for guys that could do that, and just to have that sort of competitive excellence help carry us through in the victory.
Manny, would the preference be at this point to redshirt a couple of guys who played for a time but haven't last couple of games? Jeremiah Payton, Hodges, obviously, who had played well, Jafari Harvey with your depth at defensive end, those 3. And then about Sam Brooks, do you feel you need him now the rest of the season with Zach redshirting? Sam Brooks is at 4 games.
Right. So kind of tackle those one at a time. Yeah, let's put Sam and even Jafari Harvey in the same category with the departures we know we have at linebacker next year and the potential departures that we're going to have at defensive end. It's important that those guys are still preparing every week that they're going to play, because that's going to give them a leg up in the competition next year, where we will potentially be much more inexperienced at both positions. In terms of Hodges and Payton, I think those are the guys that you're sort of monitoring and finding out. We don't want to give them snaps just to give them snaps, but if we can push them in a game, we will, and sort of see how that goes for the rest of the season.
Manny, with Jaron, just wanted to ask, what are your expectations maybe for him in practicing this week? Do you expect him to do more than he did last week?
Yeah, I would think so. He did a little bit last night, and number one, it's just having confidence in himself that he's back and he's got all of his physical capabilities around him, and then again just getting back in just prep mode. And I guess there was a great story came out of yesterday with Sam Darnold. I guess it came back from mono, and he talked about how he prepared a week ago when he couldn't play like he was going to play, and then went in there and obviously played very well yesterday, almost because he prepared for the game the week before. So I would say that type of urgency of getting back would be what we're looking for the most with Jaron.
And it seems like a couple of what people might say would be some of the more talented players on the roster, they had been playing, but they're playing a little bit more now. Rousseau, Mark Pope, obviously Silvera coming back from injury has been given a major role right away. Was there any philosophical push to get your most physically talented players on the field, or is that just a coincidence with each individual guy in that case playing more? And obviously, I know Silvera was hurt, but he is playing quite a bit in his first 2 games as opposed to playing a little bit.
Sure, that question's kind of dripping with narrative, you know what I mean, right? I mean, there's already an idea that in terms of how you want to go with it. I mean, so number one, you mentioned 3 guys. 1 guy we couldn't play, he was hurt, right? So let's talk about 2 guys. Mark Pope has been a guy, I think Taylor Stubblefield has done a great job of developing him and understanding his assignments, understanding how to be a guy and who has improved every week. Again, when we talk about talent, the talent doesn't get a chance to show until you know what to do and you can do it full speed. And that's called player development. So what's happening with Mark Pope is player development. What's happening with Greg Rousseau is player development. Greg Rousseau did not have a great training camp. For just whatever reason, he didn't have a great training camp. He had a much better spring than training camp, and Greg knows that. And we have a very competitive situation at defensive end. So it doesn't matter if you can jump over a building or do all these other things. If you can't handle your assignments and can't do it, it's hard to put that guy in and tell the other kid that's doing everything right, oh no, sorry, because he's physically more gifted. That's the exact opposite of how we've been branding this program, right? Hardworking guys that know what to do and do it full speed. Once Mark and Greg kind of reach that plateau, and they're still not 100% there yet, now I think their talent starts to speak.
Manny, just wondering, with Jaron on Saturday, was he available? I know you named Nkosi the starter on Friday night. Sorry, I know you named Nkosi the starter on Wednesday. So was he available? And what was the backup quarterback situation if something were to happen?
Well, there was a package that we could have used for Jaron. There was a package we could use for Tate. There was a package we could use for Carson Proctor. And so it was all dependent on what the game was going on and what we felt like we wanted to do.
Manny, just after evaluating Nkosi and the job he did Friday night, how do you feel like he did with getting the ball out quick, managing the pocket, making decisions, those kind of things?
I think that's where you see the greatest development in how Danny knows his work with Nkosi Perry. And one of my favorite plays of the whole game was actually a shot we missed. And Virginia on this one down, they only rushed 3, and he, his read was from low to high and went from low to the dig. The dig wasn't there, and he still stayed in his pocket and kept eyes down the field, which would not have been Nkosi a year ago. And part of that's just age and maturity and player development. And that's when he threw the post to KJ, and obviously we missed it by inches, but that was really 4 on that play, and to have the wherewithal to go through and get to number 4, potentially a big play. And obviously we want to hit our shots, which in our mind was a big storyline on Friday. We did not hit our shots, and if we had, there could have been a lot more separation on the scoreboard. But his ability, and now take it to the touchdown where he was very decisive at the end. Didn't like number 1 and said, I'm gonna put my head down and find a way to get in the end zone, and that was ultimately the play that really sealed the win for us.
Manny, Tate Martell, how do you view him now as a receiver who could be used as a quarterback from time to time if needed? Where does he fit in with the other receivers, and do you foresee him sticking with the program?
Tate loves Miami. Tate loves it here. We love Tate. Tate is a hard-working guy, one of the hardest-working guys in our program. He is learning the nuance to playing wide receiver. There's just a lot to that. But he's also a team guy and can jump right back in and take snaps at quarterback, which is what he's done a week ago. And I think Tate's just enjoying being here, enjoy being in our program, and wants to be on a winning team and do whatever it takes to help us win.
Hey, Manny, I wanted to ask you about Bubba Bolden. It seemed like he played more in this game and probably played better. What were your thoughts on his performance the second game?
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, again, Bubba's learning what to do more and now getting the game reps of doing it. And I thought he played very well when he was out there. Obviously, as I mentioned before, it brings us a lot of athleticism. A guy that's been in games and understands it. And in a game like Friday night where some due to our own mistakes on defensively where we had to play a lot of snaps to be able to roll some guys. There's some spots on defense we're not very deep. So to be able to add his depth in the secondary was crucial. And again, obviously with losing Amari, you just never know. I mean, DB now in this day and age, it's hard to finish a game with all your DBs. You just don't ever know what's going to happen. So Bubba's been a big shot in the arm for our defense.
Hey, man, with Carter being disqualified trying to make a play on the ball in the end zone, what's the message to the defensive backs going forward on plays, especially critical plays like that? Well,
I've mentioned this before. No one coaches taking the head out of the tackle more than we do here at Miami. That is taught from when our guys step on campus from day one. It's a hard rule, and it's a hard rule to officiate. And I thought the rule was, we've asked for some clarification because the issue is when you're talking about a rule that results in disqualification from a technique, that's very rare in all of sports, right? Usually get disqualified for some sort of unsportsmanlike behavior. It has to be something rash to get you kicked out of a game. The issue with Amari is Amari's had 2. The one at North Carolina, his eyes dropped, but he tried to pull out of the hit. The one on Friday night, he absolutely tried to pull out of the hit. And if you really watch on the TV copy, you're watching in slow motion, and if you're looking at whose helmet hits whose head first, the receiver's helmet hits Amari in the head as Amari is trying to turn out and lead with his shoulder. And as a fussing ex-defensive coach, my question would be, where does a player safety favor the offensive player over the defensive player? Right, because if both guys have the right for the ball, I understand that the offensive player is deemed defenseless, and this is all by the rule. Everyone, they call it the right way. But if he's deemed defenseless, because he's going to catch the ball, but if my guy's going to catch the ball too, which he has every right to do, it's hard to say why one guy's player safety is valued over the other, which is what the defensive players think. Whether that's right or wrong. I'm just telling you how difficult it is to play DB in that time frame. What I wish happened, I wish the flag was thrown, and I wish the quarterback had to come out for a play. Because balls that are late over the middle, if you throw a post into a post safety, there's going to be a collision, right? I mean, that's an avoidable play. There's a post safety there. Don't throw a post over the middle of the field. If Amari Carter's there, it's going to make a loud noise when that happens. So it's hard on a guy like Amari. We do not have a better human being on our football team than Amari Carter. He is as good of a kid as we have on this team, and so to feel like a bad guy, for what's happened to him this year, I think is unfair. But we all understand the rules of the game. And I think what we're doing is every year we're trying to refine the rule, the targeting rule, to try to make it more fair on the defensive football players. I've mentioned before potential targeting 1, targeting 2. We have succeeded. We've taken the launch out of the game. The egregious hit that was really bad. I mean, the DB that would just absolutely go to waylay the guy, which was bad for ball and bad for everybody. That, to me, we've removed that from the game. We have won the battle of that. We have made the game safer to play. But to try to those 50-50 bang-bang plays like that over the middle, when the receiver's body is this high off the ground, it's very difficult for those guys. I mean, it's just, and again, you target any lower, you're going through knees. And I don't know if anybody wants that as well. So it is what it is. It's very difficult, but I'm just standing by. I'm not going after the ruling or whatever, but I am just saying I got to stand behind my guy. I got to stand behind Amari, because that's a hard duty.
What have you liked recently out of some of your older guys, and who has stood out to you from a leadership standpoint?
Well, I do know on defense that our leadership was much better this week. I think they understood the urgency, and I think they got the message. So again, obviously with defense, it's always going to start with Shaq. It's always going to start with Pickney. It's going to start with, again, like Bandy, Garvin. You got to have guys that have to demand accountability from others. Offensively, that's still coming. I think Corey Gaynor's doing a great job with our guys up front. DJ Dallas is as good of a leader as we have on our team. KJ Osborne does it every week. But again, because we have been so young in so many spots on offense, and as we're forging our identity, the leadership should come from there. And then obviously having 2 quarterbacks that we've been playing, because your quarterback should be a built-in leader as well. So as we've said before, we don't have many seniors on this football team. But what we did tell our team this last week to challenge him is our best players have to play their best football. There's no excuse for our best guys. Our best guys can't have bad games. Otherwise, you're not our best guys. So I think a lot of our guys they know who they are, and I think you would know who they are. I think they took that to heart and all played their best game Friday night.
You've talked so much about adversity and just like this team, like you would like to see how they responded. 6 games through your coaching career, what are some of the adverse things that you've gone through that you've kind of learned from to make yourself a better coach, or just some of the lessons that you've learned so early in your coaching career?
Well, it's not something that you sit around and think about a lot. I mean, obviously what you're looking for is a team responding and playing with the how that you want them to play. Are they playing with the how? And we have not done that for every quarter, which has been disappointing. Of the 6 games we've played, we have done that for every game. Obviously we had a very bad first quarter at North Carolina. We had an even worse first quarter against Virginia Tech. I would say, other than that, maybe the second quarter against Central Michigan, I would say other than that, we have competed and played as hard as we can play through every other quarter throughout the season, which we knew. Year 1 was going to be about, the how, and we were going to take the pressure off the execution, because we'd heard so much about the execution, and we were going to know that the execution was going to come. First-year quarterback, young offensive lineman, new offensive system. We knew the execution would increase with the team as time went on. So I think the biggest thing is just, it's no different than being a head coach. Being a coordinator is you can't waver. You got to trust your plan. You have to understand your vision. and understand no different than what the lesson the team learned on Friday night, which is if you stay after it, the rewards come. Do we want them to come earlier? Of course we did. Are there things we all could have done better to try to win some of those games we didn't win? Well, there's no question about that. But the guys have stayed the course, and they have found out that it's making us a difficult team to beat.
You're making the most of your depth at receiver and defensive tackle. Is the thinking at those positions, like at receiver, to go 6 deep with significant playing time instead of 4 or 5, with defensive tackle go 5 deep instead of maybe 4? Is that because those 3 through 5 guys have done enough on the practice field where you feel they must be rewarded? Is it wanting to keep guys fresh, or both of those things?
It's probably all of the above, but I think when you look at it, we don't ever go into a position saying, well, we only want to play blank amount of guys. The more guys we have that are game ready to go in, those guys get to go in. And so it's fairly obvious we have some spots where we have more of those than we do others. Now, in a game like, there's nothing more challenging than chasing around Bryce Perkins for a front. And that's an example where if we could not roll our front, it would have been telling in the fourth quarter. We probably would have had a hard time. The guy's hard enough to get when you're rolling guys. So to be able to roll 9 guys on our defensive line to stay fresh, to chase a guy around like that was so monumental in our success.
Well, there's 2 more questions. Okay.
Manny, me, right? Okay, I have a 1A, 1B. Okay, 1A is Virginia Tech. At Virginia Tech game, it looked like Nkosi got crushed in the helmet on one play that the officials looked at. And
right.
I personally, I don't know, did you talk to the officials about that? Because I couldn't understand why they did not call that targeting. And then the second part that has nothing to do with the first part is physically, how much better is Jaron than he was last week?
To answer your first question, to the eye test, that certainly looked like targeting on Nkosi, but through the criteria that they said, even when we asked them to reevaluate it during the week, they said it wasn't.
Why though did they say it wasn't?
Because they said it didn't meet the criteria. There's 3 criteria that has to meet, and they said it didn't meet the criteria. So, and as for Jaron, what did you ask? Is physically?
How much better is Jaron than he was last week?
We'll find out Tuesday, because last night was just a light practice, so we'll know more Tuesday. I have to imagine he's better, so we'll see.
We talked about this a lot, just the breakdowns in the secondary that happened early on. It seems like this last game was just that one play, the 49-yarder right before the half. I wanted to get your take on what happened on that play, because it looked like DJ slipped going back, and at some point I look at the receiver was just kind of left alone. I wonder what kind of happened.
Yeah, because the guy who was supposed to run underneath that receiver didn't run all the way out there. He was on the numbers instead of in the flats on 3rd down and 14 or 15 or whatever it was. So if he'd have been there, the most depressing part of the play is Jonathan Garvin has whipped his man and is about to sack the quarterback, but because we leave the guy open, the ball goes to him. DJ slips on his break, and then it was a comedy of poor tackling angles that allowed the guy to cross the field, and be able to make the play. So again, the guy should not have been open. It was but again, as you mentioned, it was obviously the only bad coverage breakdown down the field, but it was one at a critical time and ultimately gave him 3 points.
I was gonna say overall, I guess you feel better about maybe this game, the way that they covered overall.
I feel better, but we're still not there yet. There's still some plays that are being made, and when I say plays being made, I mean there's a 3rd down, the quarterback throws the ball on a flat route, we got a flat corner. That's got to be a touchdown for Miami. And so just to understand still understanding the nuances of the coverage, and when this defense has always been built to maximize our playmaking ability, whether that's through turnovers or TFLs or sacks or whatever, and I don't know. And again, part of it is just youth, and when you're young, you're trying to memorize it all instead of really understanding. Okay, they called this. Oh man, please throw this route. Please, oh it's happening. You know what I mean? And when we get that, that I think this thing goes to a different level.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you all.